Hello, this is Dan, the Furniture Repairman. Today we have a very quick video on how to repair a threaded insert that's been torn out of the wood. So these are common in furniture. They're used to hold things together, and goes in this backrest right here. And over time it's just gotten very loose and wobbly, and it's not holding in there anymore. So we're going to make a tool. This is the screw that holds that backrest on, that fits that insert, and what we're going to do is just put two nuts on there, and it's a very simple tool we're going to make, and we're going to use this to install the insert itself. Now that you can buy a special adapter that can install the insert, but this is much easier. You already have the screw, two nuts, you tighten them against each other, and then you're going to thread the insert on just like that, and you're going to tighten it all together, and now you kind of got a piece that you could use to drive that into the wood, just like that. Very simple to do. After that, we're going to mix up some epoxy. We like Quick Cure 15 from System 3, but any epoxy I'm sure is good enough. And just read the manufacturer's specs on what you're using. Most epoxies are 1-to-1, but check the manufacturer's directions and mix it according to them. So we don't use a lot of epoxy. It's just a tiny little bit we need to mix up. So I'm going to just mix up in this little plastic cup right here, and we're going to give it a few stirs. And we're going to stir it quite a bit so we get it nice and mixed and nice and hot. Once we have it mixed, I'm going to take some and I'm going to just start ladling it into this hole right here. And I'm going to try to get it all along the sides of the hole and in the bottom of the hole. So the insert is loose, and we're going to have to take up that distance with epoxy. Now you can put wood in there, you could put a dowel in there and then re-drill it out. I found this way works just as well and is much faster to do. Now just a little bit of epoxy all around the sides to make sure I have it there. And now what I'm going to do is, this is my insert on the end of that screw that we're using, and we're just putting a little epoxy right there on the threads. And we don't want any epoxy on the inside, but unfortunately there's always going to end up being some in there, but just try to avoid getting it in there. After that, what I'm doing is I'm coming back, and some epoxy always settles in the bottom of the hole. We don't necessarily want it in the bottom because it's going to push up inside the insert, and we don't want epoxy in there because it's going to keep it from the screw from going in. Now, keeping it nice and straight is very important, because if you don't have it straight, the screw you're putting, when you put the screw back in, it's not gonna line up correctly. So this is a difficult one. It's a curved backrest. So basically, I just have to use my eyes and line it up correctly. And I'm tightening it down with an Allen wrench, and we're just kind of screwing it right there. Now you can drill a little deeper if you want to, and then use a longer screw. Right now I'm backing the screw back out of the insert, and you can see it's coming back out, and with it's going to come the two nuts that were used to kind of drive that insert in place, and the insert's left inside the wood right there. So nothing too hard here at all. The key is getting it lined up straight. That's really what you want to do. If it's not lined up straight, it's going to be hard to get the bolt or screw, whatever it is you're putting in there, to line up straight. So now I probably have some epoxy on the threads of this screw. So I'm going to take the nuts off of it, and what I'm going to do is this is a denatured alcohol on a rag, and I'm going to clean the threads up. Once I have the threads cleaned up, and I'm going to clean up that edge, I'm going to thread it back in, all the way back in, so that I keep threading it back in and out. I'll do this like 5 or 6 times. So if any epoxy is going to settle inside those threads, then I'm going to have the screw go through them, and we'll pull the epoxy back out. And if a little epoxy stays in the threads, but we've shaped it into the shape of the threads, then it doesn't matter too much. What we don't want is like a pool of epoxy or a bunch of epoxy in there that keeps you from putting the screw back in. Now you can use a tap if you get it clogged up. You just have to go to a hardware store and get the same size tap as your screw, and then you'll just run it in there once or twice. But you can see as I run this back, it's a little shiny there because it did pull some epoxy off. So I'm going to clean it back off again with denatured alcohol. Now after about 4 or 5 times, 10 minutes have gone by, my epoxy has hardened up like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw the screw in one last time. The epoxy is still a little soft, And if it's having any trouble, I could use my Allen wrench and push through any epoxy that's dried on the inside. Now, I don't want to torque it and throw it out of whack. I just constantly going back and forth until you get the screw in and out a few times, and then you're going to let the epoxy harden. Now, this is 15-minute epoxy, but I let this sit overnight, and then we went ahead and installed it, and everything was just fine. This is Dan, the Furniture Repairman. Hope this helps you with something. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, every time we repair something, it keeps it out of the landfill, and it keeps a tree from being cut down to make a new one. You have questions, your comments, feel free to put them below. Remember to like and subscribe. You all have a good day.